Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in the process of doing a little bit of work here to the twin turbo Nissan 370 GT, and what I'm currently working on is airflow into the front through the upper grille and the lower grille, and trying to get the efficiency up a bit on the air that's actually hitting the front of the car and try and make better use of it. Since mounting a dirty big intercooler in the front of the car, plus two big oil coolers behind it, and removing all of the factory sort of air diverters to get all the intercooler piping through and everything, I've pretty much come to the conclusion that air hitting the front of the vehicle no longer does what it used to do as far as efficiently channeling into the radiator because of all the changes that have been made. I'll just move in front of the car and I'll point a few things out, folks. I don't have a real good camera angle here because the shed isn't real long. I'm up against the workbench with the tripod. Car's on the hoist, can't move anything. I'd like to be more in front of it, but we're just going to have to make do with what we've got here, folks. Alright, so the issue that we have here, folks, is that I feel that air, when it hits this lower grille here, instead of being driven through the intercooler, I feel a lot of the air is rushing up the back here and running over the top of the intercooler because, let's face it, path of least resistance. It's easier for air to flow through this big empty hole here than it is to push through the intercooler core. So what I need to do is block that off across here underneath this lip here. So create something that that closes off from the top of the core to the underside of where the grill mounts in here. And also there's a situation where it's also completely open on both ends, so when air hits the front on the lower grill and the upper grill, it can actually just go around the sides and move out into the inner guard area and up and over and into the engine bay without actually being forced through the intercooler or through the radiator. So I'm going to address that because originally there were plastic shields on either side that funnel the air directly into the radiator, but they're gone. I've tried to retain bits of them where I could, but basically they're completely gone. Just because there's a conflict in real estate between all the intercooler piping and whatnot and those pieces. So basically what we've got to do is really think about how the air is moving and what it's actually doing and how we can force it to go where we want to. Because as you probably know, folks, air follows all of the principles of fluid dynamics. If there's a way for it to go that's easier than another way, it'll go that way. As I mentioned, it's going to be much more likely to hit here and just come up through here and then roll over the back than it is to actually drive through the intercooler. Which creates a big problem because we have to get air through the intercooler to get to the oil coolers mounted in behind it, because they are very close to the intercooler, and if air is just rushing over the top, it'll actually be going in behind the coolers and going through the radiator. Now, I do have two quite large oil coolers behind there. They're both, what are they? They're both Cetrab cores. I think one's a 30 something row and one's a 25 row or something. Oil cooler is the biggest, transmission cooler is the smaller one, and of course I've got the power steering cooler down here. So there's a lot more load as far as heat to get rid of in here than there was sort of from the factory. You know, originally you only have the air conditioning condenser and then the radiator to push through, and honestly the radiator seems to be cooling quite well. It does have a CSF triple pass radiator in it, but I think it's more due to the fact that it's actually getting better airflow than the intercooler is, because as I say, air sitting here, I reckon going up and over the intercooler, and all the air from this main grill is just being forced over behind there and through the radiator. I've noticed that when I do start asking a bit of the vehicle and start really putting some heat into it, it does take a while to get hot, but it also takes a while to recover, which it shouldn't be doing, whereas the water temperature seems to recover a lot faster than the engine oil temp and the transmission oil temp. I'm not monitoring the air intake temperatures at the moment, but I reckon I would find the same thing. So really it's common sense to do this sort of thing. Just about every vehicle I've owned and done modifications like this, I've done this sort of stuff to it. It's just one of those things that you just kind of work your way into. I've been busy doing a lot of other mods to the car, of course, which you guys would have seen. So this is where I'm at the moment. We've had a few hot days, as I say, recently, and I do monitor all the temperatures that I can in the vehicle, and I just like to try and make better full of use of the air that we have in here, because there's plenty of big openings. Like that's quite a big opening there, and we do have this sort of large opening here as well. Might as well use them to the best of our ability. So I've already started on doing some stuff here. You can see these bits of aluminium here. They sort of go down, and I'll show you how that is. I'm in the process of making it. I thought I'd get a little bit done before I turn the camera on, just so I've got something to show you guys, so it's a bit easier for me to explain exactly what I'm doing. So I'll get the front bar off and we'll have a bit of a look. So you can see what I've been doing here, folks. I'm trying to build up the sides here into the shape of what we have on the inner side of the front bar. And what I've done here is I've got a piece of cardboard, and I've kind of roughed it out, the bulk of it, as best as I can. And then I've been under the car and reaching up inside with a torch and looking for areas that I didn't quite have all the way out into position before sort of making them up in aluminium. And that's the plan, folks. All this sort of stuff is going to be made up in aluminium. And like I say, we're going to cut this off across the front, probably a bit across the bottom, and just make a full-on aluminium duct that's completely sealed, that will funnel all of the airflow that hits this lower grill, will be forced through the intercooler. And by being forced through the intercooler, it then gets forced through the oil coolers and then continues into that radiator cavity, while at the same time air comes through the top grill and also goes into that radiator cavity, and it doesn't get blown out through the sides, which is where a lot of it was going. And I'm also filling in behind the back here, so that once it is over in behind there, it can't then shoot out the sides behind this. I'll get this one off, folks, and I'll give you a bit of a look at what I've done here. Just this side's a bit easier to get off than that side, that's all. I'll have to dismount the camera and bring it over so you can have a bit of a look. So that's our piece there, folks, as ratty looking as it is. You can see it's just a piece of cardboard. These bits I've only just sort of stuck on there from in behind. But I've got this piece of aluminium here that I've sort of shaped and bent up, and we'll have a look at that now. So what I've done on this side of the intercooler, folks, just to give myself a bracket to be able to kind of start this. This is just a bit of 25 by 25 mil aluminium angle. Looks like 1.6 maybe, I reckon. And now that's just riveted onto the side of the intercooler. This outside plate on the intercooler here is just a plate. It's not a channel like when you sort of move in further. So if you drill through this outside section here, it's just actually a piece of aluminium. So I've got some 5mm rivets down in behind there. I think there's 4 5mm rivets going through, so that's really solid. And then I've got some 6mm stainless riv nuts, which gives me a method to be able to hold this ductwork on. Once the thing's completed, it'll be sort of like a one-piece unit that will just bolt on through the front, so there'll be just 3 bolts on each side, and then this whole unit should just sort of come away. So that's how I worked out how to create a fixing for it, which obviously you have to do. Mate, anything like this that you're doing, folks, you just got to sort of have a look at it, sit down, take your time, scratch your head, get an idea, knock it on the head, nah, it's shit, get another idea, you know, work through a few ideas, don't rush into it too quickly and start on something without fully thinking it through, because you can end up doing a whole heap of work for nothing, and you realise when you're part way into it that it was a silly idea and that you've just had a better one, which happens to me all the time. So, as I said, folks, I'm in the process of just filling this in from underneath. I made this piece of cardboard here. I just kind of worked out where I wanted to go and just kind of shoved it in and started cutting it and pushing it in, and you know, just kind of working out where it would be, and then sort of working out how I was going to anchor it in with this piece and all this kind of stuff. And hopefully I'm getting it somewhere where it needs to be now. So the next step will be to reproduce these 2 side pieces here in aluminium when I'm sure that they're absolutely perfect, and then we can sort of move forward from there. Once again, folks, I'm a bit cramped in here. Apologies for this. It just kind of sucks. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, folks, and you can apply this to working on any vehicle, it doesn't have to be this particular car, but it's really just the principles that you should be interested in, folks, and the methods that you use to you know, to sort of work through it, so that you end up with exactly what you want at the end of the day, and it sort of goes together pretty easy. This is just some, once again, I think it's 1.6 aluminium. I just bought a few small sheets of it on eBay, and I've just bent them up on my little bender here that I sort of built that's attached to the bench there. And yeah, we'll start from there. So the next thing is, once I get this piece right, as I say, I'll copy that out onto some aluminium. We'll temporarily attach it to this, and then we'll make it sort of a permanent thing once I'm sure it's right. So I'll go and do these, folks. When I get these made out of aluminium, I'll hit the camera and we'll have another look. Alright, this piece is just about right. I have stuck a few more bits and pieces on it since the last time you guys saw it, and I'm pretty happy with it now. It's a piece of aluminium I've got here. As I mentioned, it's just a bit of a piece I bought on eBay. I get a lot of my stuff there just because I only deal in really small quantities with this sort of thing. So what we're going to do, folks, is we're just going to trace it out now and cut him off. I've just got to be careful that I make sure I take off the line when I cut this, so that it doesn't end up any bigger than this piece, because it will grow if I don't, and we do not want that. Hopefully I'll do a few little corrections, just straighten a few lines up as I go. There's a good chance a lot of these lines aren't sort of straight or square or whatever they're meant to be, but we can just correct that in the meantime. I just marked a little trim on this. I actually marked two little trims. I haven't done either of them. I'm a bit of a goose. That one and this one here. Give all these edges a bit of a sand too, folks, when it's all said and done, make it all smooth. That should be pretty good. We'll get it over on the bandsaw and we'll cut her out.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious.
So here we go, folks, we've gone from that to that. So I've just riveted it to that side piece that I already had mounted on the intercooler there. I just set it up by drilling through. You can see the two locating holes that I've done here through the template and through the piece so that it lines up properly. And I've just given it a little bit of a sand on some of these edges just to sort of tidy it up so I don't cut anything when I put it in. So yeah, that's about it for our first end plate. So let's go and fit it up and see what it looks like. Alrighty. So far so good. Alright, that looks pretty good. Pretty happy with it at this stage, folks. You can see how we look from this side, how we're sort of blocking all in behind as much as we can off. I will later fit some pieces in behind to properly seal it off. Where we go around these silicone hoses and stuff, I'll put some edging on the aluminium, you know, just to soften that edge right up. And there's also going to be, I worked out another spot under here where I can fix back into the front here, so that gives me another fixing there. And let's have a look at it from this side. I think that's pretty reasonable. So as long as the front fits on okay, it should be pretty good to go at this stage. So what I'll do is I'll do the opposite side, and then we'll test fit the front bar just to make sure that everything is okay, and we'll move on to the next bit. And there we go, folks, that's our second end plate made up now, our driver's side one. Couple of holes through there for the power steering cooler hoses to run through. So what I'm about to do now is just test fit the front bar and everything again, make sure that there is no interference and that we have a really nice fit along this edge here and everything. And from there we'll move on to sealing up the top. So you can see from the size of these end plates here, folks, that when air hits the front of the vehicle, it has a lot of area to be able to just disperse to the sides and blow around the intercooler and the radiators and everything, and also over the top, as I showed you with the main grill up the top. This is where the opening sits here for the lower grill, and as you can see, that's its location right there. So it sits fairly low. So hence the reason why we have to cap this off to stop the air coming in and then just blowing onto the intercooler and then just rolling over the top and going through the radiator. Because there'll be less resistive forces in that direction, you know, it's just going to go where it's easier for it to go. So this type of thing will greatly improve the efficiency of your intercooler and your oil coolers and even the radiator, you know, because you are actually getting a lot more airflow. So you're basically just making use of what you already have available, which is the amount of airflow from the front of the vehicle, without wasting it all going over and around everything that you need. And really that's due to the fact that all this has been changed. When, as I mentioned a while ago, when the car is stock standard from the factory, there are some plastic sort of deflectors on the sides here that fit neatly with the front bar. But obviously, you know, all that has to go to be able to get all this in. And honestly, from what I can see, most people don't bother putting all these deflectors back in, making new ones. And they're constantly fighting, you know, bigger intercoolers, bigger oil coolers and everything to try and control temperature. You've just got to basically put a lot of thought into it and just say to yourself, okay, well, where's it easier for the wind to go, for the air to go when it hits it? Where are the high pressure areas? Where are the low pressure areas? If it's going to go from a high pressure area to a low pressure area unaffected, is that going to help me in cooling? And obviously you can see with this the answer is no. It's just going to roll over the top of the intercooler and roll out the sides, which if it doesn't go through the intercooler, it's not going to go through the oil coolers either because they're mounted directly behind it. So I'll put the front bar back on, we'll check this is all good, and if it is, we'll move on to closing off the top of this to separate the two grills. So I've just slipped the front bar back on, folks, over those two end plates. I did have to make a few little minor trims to them, really just you know, abrasive sanding the shapes a little bit better because the cardboard will tend to conform to the shape of the bar, and it's a bit hard to tell if it's being pushed, or plus the cardboard doesn't really sit perfectly square and everything, whereas once you put the aluminium sheet in there it doesn't really move around. So you probably are always going to have to make some you know, minor adjustments on something this where you want to get that clearance really nice and tight and have it a really good fit up. So I'll put it back up in the air and I'll give you a look in behind so you can sort of see how nice the fit up is. Alright folks, that's what we're looking at up inside of there. You can see it's a reasonably neat fit. There are a couple of areas where I trimmed a little tiny bit more just to facilitate getting the front bar on and off a bit easier. The front bar kind of rolls onto the front, so you've got to kind of take that into consideration so that you don't you know, put anything there that's going to stop it rolling on, which was really only minor. It just meant a couple of sort of edges and a couple of pointy bits had to be rounded off, so just so that it rolled on easily. But you can see the fit ups, it's pretty good, pretty good. We'll go and have a quick look at the other side. Yeah, same deal folks, it's a bit hard to sort of see up in there, but you get the gist of it. It all fits up pretty good and certainly achieves what I wanted it to. Alright, onward. I'm just about to take the first step, folks, in joining these two pieces together. So after this now becomes one piece, and the more that I add to this, then the more it's going to be a unit, you know, that comes off in one piece. Just get a rivet in this. Alright, so for all intents purposes, folks, it's now one piece. So obviously when we move it, it comes off in one go. I'll get a couple more rivets in here, and then I'm going to start building a ledge that comes out around here to separate these two halves, to separate the bottom grill from the top grill, so that we can basically pressurize this lower grill area to force air through the intercooler and through all the oil coolers. So I'll get a couple of rivets in it, and then I'll set up this next piece, folks. I'll probably do it in cardboard first, check it out, and you know, get it right, and then we'll make it out of aluminium. So I'll start chipping away at it, folks, and I'll give you a bit of a look. I'm just starting to set up one of the tops now, folks. I'm doing this in two halves for two reasons. The first one being the pieces of aluminium that I have aren't long enough to go full length, and also I have to bend a step in this, and my bender, which is over here on the bench, isn't big enough to bend anything bigger than that piece that I've got on there. So what it means is I'm just going to have a join in the middle, which is fine, because I'm going to put a piece of this 25 by 25 across the front, and it'll be in one piece, which the bumper sort of comes down here, so anything that's hanging down in the front here, it's not going to block airflow, because the air actually comes up from underneath. So I'm just setting this up at the moment. As you can see, I've got some G clamps on there. I'm going to put a couple of self tappers in it to hold it in position, so that I can get the front bar back on and just check it all, and if it's okay, I'll go ahead and rivet it all, and then move on to the second piece. Front bar's on, folks. That's looking pretty good to me. I'm quite happy with how that's sort of worked out. That's sealed it up really well. Little steps work to get me down from this height here down to the height of the bumper bar there, which is only a 15mm step. So now I'm ready to start on this side and get a strengthening piece across the front of it. Onward! Let's get in there, folks. The second half's now done. I've got a couple of self tappers in it, a couple of clamps. It's looking pretty good. I might just check the front bar again with it and make sure it's going to be right. And then we'll have a little bit of a think about the bottom. The power steering cooler sits in the middle down there. I don't really have another place for it. It's not a bad spot for the cooler, but it sort of complicates the airflow a little bit under there. So we'll check this top section, and I'll have a little bit of a think about the bottom down there. Yep, I reckon that's pretty right, folks. Pretty happy with that. Seals it up nicely. Paint it all black, you'll never know any of it's there. The whole thing's going to be painted black when it's finished. So I think we'll leave this here, folks. It was a pretty good start, I reckon. Everything seemed to go pretty well. Next episode, we get a whole heap more done, hopefully finish it off. So if you like the video, folks, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that great stuff. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.